All right, Cap, very similar messages between the two, but there's also a little bit of a warning here. So from Halloween, you pulled Skull of Flowers, creating through the ashes, and then from Hidden Realms, the Spirit Whisperer, Divine Guidance, and Higher Knowing. Now, this one did show up as a challenge. Now, the Skull of Flowers, this is beautiful, beautiful card. You know, very much reminds me of death. It is about you being like the phoenix here, but it's also about getting a chance to have, you know, a clean slate here to work from and to build what you really want rather than settling for less. You know, this is about a fresh start. One of the things that it says about this that I love, the Skull of Flowers celebrates not just a kind of phoenix energy, but an energy of success and full bloom through adversity. But you run the risk here of facing that adversity again when you don't have to. Now, with the Spirit Whisperer showing up as a challenge, it's saying that it's time to start new and to pay attention to your intuition because you may be going off track. You know, there isn't a need here to do the same thing again and have to clean up the same mess, but it does say that lessons learned over and over make for great wisdom later. All right, Cap, here's your overall for the week. Ugh. The Nine of Swords being the overall, I mean, this could very simply be about you overthinking a situation. But I look at this one and I think, man, some of you like literally are having a hard time sleeping because your thoughts are just all over the place. And it could be about things that, you know, have been said to you. You know, it could be regret over actions that you have taken, or it could just be worry. But I don't know, the image on this one gets to me more so than any other Nine of Swords that I've seen, because I know what that's like. I know what that's like, sitting up in bed and just thinking, and not being able to just rest your mind. Now, in the past, the Four of Pentacles, so, you know, there clearly here is something that, you know, you're not willing to give up your position on. You know, I look at this and I think there's a reason why you're not willing to give anymore. But it could also be about holding on too tightly to things, right? Now, like I've said before, I mean, definitely it could be about, you know, penny pinching, and you may be worrying about something on a financial level, absolutely. But what I worry about is what you're not willing to let go of, you know. And the thing is like I've always said with the Four of Pentacles, it's because there's a level of stability that's been found, you know. But with the Nine of Swords, it's not a good thing, you know. Okay, so in the present, the Seven of Cups. You know, I look at this and I think, for some of you, clearly it's overthinking. It's overthinking about what is going to happen based on a choice that you've made. Now, on the other hand, some of you are just, it's almost like your thoughts are not allowing you, you know, to accurately see the different options you have in front of you. You know, but I'm waiting to see here. I don't necessarily feel like this is about fantasy at all. Now, if you have made a choice, you know, there's a lot of overthinking about what the potential outcome is. You know, I always say with the Seven of Cups, watch out for, you know, your expectations. But you're not willing to give anything in the first place, though. You know? And it may be that there are a couple of different things in front of you, but, you know, it just might be too much for you right now. Like, I don't know. I don't know what to do. That's what I'm getting from that. Oh boy. All right. So future conditions, you have the Ace of Wands. Now, you know, even if you're looking at an ace in the reverse, it's still there. It's just, you know, you're not doing what you need to make the most of it, but it's only because of the way that you're thinking right now. So with the Ace of Wands, there's definitely an opportunity there, but, you know, for some of you, there's some expectation over what's going to happen. But I'm waiting to see why, you know, what is going on in your environment that's got you in this state here. You know, what is it that you feel like you're going to lose, though, if you make this choice? You know, that's the other thing, right? Because the whole reason why with the Four of Pentacles somebody's not willing to give is because there's the fear of loss, losing what little stability you have gained, right? And this could definitely be a financial situation for some of you. Oh, your best path to follow, the Ten of Cups. Now, it could be that, this is a family situation here, and you may be overthinking how, the overall happiness within your home is going to be affected based on you making the choice here to follow a passion, which absolutely could be the case. Because do you have, the stability to do this, right? Because, clearly you do with the Four of Pentacles, but you're not willing to give anything. Now, if we're talking about your overall happiness, this is saying that, stop worrying so much, right? Like, I don't think that what's coming through is necessarily a bad thing, and it may lead to your overall happiness, right? It's almost like I look at these two and I think, don't think about the worst case scenario. Don't do that to yourself, right? In your environment, the Nine of Wands, I see this one and I think of somebody who is like peering out to see like what's headed toward them, worried about what the next battle is going to be, but that doesn't necessarily have to be the case. Now, definitely it could be that you're protecting yourself, protecting what is important to you, being on guard and being defensive. But then there is the part of you that, clearly here, there's something that you're wanting to choose. I do think that there are expectations around, what is going to happen, but the way that you're looking at it is not, in a good way at all. I'm looking at this and I'm going, no. Letting your thoughts run away with you, not willing to give anything here, staying stuck, not willing to change, and then also, not wanting to let anything in. But then here it is, and then you have happiness next to that. Your hopes and your fears. Okay, well, then that starts to explain a lot here. So the King of Wands. So for some of you, you could definitely be dealing with another person here. It could be a fire sign, but your hopes and fears are surrounding this person. The King of Wands, when I see him, I think that this is somebody that there is an attraction to. I worry that there isn't a whole lot of follow through when it comes to the King of Wands. But again, you're talking about somebody who is full of passion, who, is constantly on the move. And it's not that they're looking to be in and out here, but, you're also talking about somebody hopefully here who has a little bit of wisdom when it comes to where his passions are leading him. But, for some reason, some of you don't think that, it's possible to reach a new beginning with this person. I almost wonder if some of you are regretting even considering that an option, and it may be because of something that this person has done, which is possible, but I'm looking at a family situation. I'm looking at, possibly here with the Ten of Cups, you needing to think about what is going to make you happy overall here and stop worrying about what this other person is doing. I think that for you, it's, especially if we're talking about somebody who is just doing whatever the hell they want, like, with the Nine of Wands being there, it could be that, you're not thinking realistically about what he could be potentially doing, and I feel like that for some of you. Just because he's hopes and fears, and it's almost like looking out like, okay, what the hell are they doing now? What else am I going to have to deal with? What else are they going to bring to me that I'm going to have to, fight with? But it's not real though, looking at the Seven of Cups. Now, for some of you, you may be thinking a little bit too much about what another person could possibly be doing. Like I said, but then I look at the Ace of Wands and I think, there is definitely a potential here for a new beginning. But you're not taking physical action, though, and that's the thing. Now, coming out the Hangman, you're just... I think that you're trying to see things differently, and I say that a lot when I see the Hangman, because I think of somebody who is trying to gain enlightenment, trying to gain understanding, but for some reason you are bound, possibly in a certain way, of seeing things. Now, you may definitely be waiting on, an opportunity here with this person, but for some reason they may have, interests somewhere else, which is possible. But it's affecting you. It's affecting you in the way that you're thinking, especially when it comes to your overall happiness, right? Man, oh man. Okay, so temperance, right? With the Four of Pentacles, I feel like for a lot of you, it's, trying to maintain what little bit of stability you have here, but then also, looking toward what could possibly be going on with a person that you have hopes and fears surrounding. But looking at temperance, it's basically saying that you need to get your balance back for sure, instead of thinking about, another person and what they could or could not be doing here, and then looking at, a new beginning for you, right? And needing to be done with this way of thinking. And then strength, needing to hold on to your inner strength here and not get pissed and, get overly angry here. But then also, I feel like there's going to be a need for you to just hang in there, hang on, keep your balance and hold on to your strength, because something is definitely coming out into the light, but then also it leads to a new opportunity. Now, I look back at, Skull of Flowers and think, out of this, you are definitely getting a new slate, right? Absolutely. But don't, keep yourself in this state of limbo for somebody else. Don't do that, right? Because I don't like the way that they're making you think. That's my problem. If he would have been somewhere else, it would have been like, okay, well, maybe there's some irrational thinking here, but because these hopes and fears, everything is hinging on what this person does, but it doesn't really matter, right? Your overall happiness is what actually matters here. And this is only for those of you who are dealing with a person. Very specifically, the King of Wands. Do you really need to learn this lesson again? How many times do you feel like you need to learn this before, you're okay with moving on and creating a new beginning for yourself? Wow, Cap, I worry for some of you. But I look at this and I think just hang in there, keep your balance, stay strong, because everything is going to come out. Everything is going to come out into the light of day. You're going to see everything for what it is. And it may open the door here for, like I said, a new opportunity for you to, have that passionate new beginning for you where you feel better, But, I don't know, something about it bothers me because of the Nine of Swords and the King of Wands there. And then transition, you have to stop resisting what you know and go through that transition, and then I go back to the Oracle cards and I think, like I said, this is an opportunity for a clean slate. Absolutely. You're going to be the phoenix rising from the ashes. But I feel like this is something that you've already been through, and yet here you are going through it again, But balance, right? Needing to maintain your balance here, but don't resist stuff, because what you resist persists, right? There's no point in doing that to yourself. But if you continue to resist, then the transition can't happen. And that may be why we're looking at the Spirit Whisperer. But like I said, I do think that for some of you, it's going to have to do with a person here. And then look at your pattern in relationships. Damn, Cap, man, your readings, I swear to God. It requires inner strength to recognize that you need to change or modify your behavior. And this isn't about you doing things wrong. It's about, allowing these things to happen to you where you're constantly in a state of anxiety over what is happening with somebody else. You don't need to continuously put yourself in those kind of patterns in relationships. And forgiveness is about you needing to forgive yourself. Wow, Cap. A very specific message here. And I do think it's going to have to do with possibly a marriage situation, a relationship situation here for some of you, family. But your overall happiness is by far more important than consistently having to worry about what somebody else is doing behind your back. All right, Cap, so this one is going to be very specific. Now, the reason why I say, you worrying about somebody doing something behind your back is it's not because I'm looking at the Seven of Swords. I'm looking at it, and this is big. This is really big. I have a feeling that you need to just hang in there, keep your balance, and hold on to that strength, because everything is going to come out. Everything is going to come out with that sun. Absolutely. And it's going to be based on the things that you've been fearing around a person here. And again, this is going to be, for those of you who are very, specifically dealing with this. This is not going to be for everyone. This is going to be for the Capricorns who are dealing with a person here that you have been worrying about as far as what they've been doing. The thing is, though, is I look at this and think you've already been through this. You already know. Because I look at this and think about, this is a lesson that you've learned over and over and over again. And then, Whispers of Love kind of confirms that. But then, you still have this opportunity to have this clean slate. And I do think that some of you have options in front of you, but I don't think that you're willing to give up on, what is going on with this person here. And that Ace of Wands is there, but the Hangman is saying that, it's almost like you need that final, push of, okay, that is one too many, I'm done. Now, on the other hand, some of you, may be being unrealistic, and I only say that because of the Seven of Cups, but, I don't know. I think that the only reason why you would be thinking this way is because, you've already seen this. You've already seen this, so, there's only so many possibilities here on what else you may have to deal with. But it's all going to come out. It's all going to come out. And I feel like, you just need to hang in there. Hang in there through this. Don't, let anger get control of you. I want to say that. And then also maintain your own balance. Don't let somebody else throw you off because of Temperance being there. This is very specific. But then I look at the Ten of Cups and I think, yeah, this could have to do possibly with a marriage situation. But regardless, your overall happiness is by far more important than, consistently worrying about what else you're going to have to face. When it comes to somebody who you could be possibly here in a marriage or a relationship with. Now, again, balance. Right? Needing to maintain your own balance, your own inner balance here. But resistance, if you continue to resist what you already know, then you're going to block that transition. You're going to block that transition here with, the Skull of Flowers and having that clean slate, and you being able to finally see all of the things that are available to you instead of thinking that they're all just fantasies, right? Because you're locked into this mental pattern here because of another person. Now, and again, if we're talking about a relationship, right, look at your patterns in relationships, and it's not that you do things wrong, it's that, you end up in the same pattern over and over again, especially if you continuously deal with the same thing with the same person. And I look at this and I think you just need to go through that forgiveness for yourself and let it go. And start looking at those patterns so that you don't repeat it. But, again, more so with this person. This is not a lesson that you need to learn again. There's no need for you to go through that cycle again. Cap, everything is going to come out and you're going to understand it fully. And that doesn't have to be a bad thing. Because I still look at that Ace of Wands, and it doesn't matter to me that the Nine of Swords is the overall here. It's just the mental thoughts that are blocking you from actually seeing what's available. But it's there, and that's the thing. And that may make it easier for you to stop putting yourself in that state of limbo and then finally open up to the realization of the entire situation with the sun, right? But again, if you continue to resist, you can't expect to see that transition happen, and you don't have to go through this lesson again.